All right, welcome to the fourth and final review of the evening. Up this time is Roundguard, and longtime watchers of the show might remember this game being featured about a year ago. Um, so we did an interview with the Quantum Astrophysicists Guild over Roundguard. Um, but we didn't review it back in the day. I don't think there was a place in the review schedule at that particular moment in time. So the question might arise, why are we covering Roundguard now? Well, they did a pretty significant addition to the game, and that is they have added a new character, the Druid. So I don't know what their
Which we were going to select, but it's locked until you've played one round with everybody else.
Yeah. So that shouldn't take too long. But in the meantime, I can give you, in case you missed the interview last year, I can give you the rundown of Roundguard, which is pretty easy in terms of X meets Y. It's on the spacier side of that, as it is roguelite meets Peggle. Not the weirdest combination. That's still Tumbleseed, but this is still not the maybe first or 500 thing you come to when you make a roguelike, but I'll be honest, roguelite, the whole rogue thing is, if not the most overexposed genre type on the indie circuit, it's up there. It's right alongside Metroidvanias in terms of how many of these fucking things are you churning out? Like,
now the Peggle thing is new.
Yeah. Yeah. Surprisingly, there aren't a lot of games that take influence from Peggle. Given how popular that game is, you'd think there'd be more Peggle likes. But no. This is one of the few games I've seen that takes direct inspiration from Peggle. At least on the surface. That being said, it's a pretty different game from the actual Peggle, and it's an inferior game at that, unfortunately. But I'll get that is because the physics are actually pretty different from Peggle. I'm not exactly sure why, but Peggle isn't just about bouncing balls. There's a, for lack of a better term, stickiness and heft to Peggle balls that are not in Roundguard. What that means is the ball characters that you fire off have like one mode, and that is bounce all over the place. Just extreme bounce. And that can be a hindrance on some of the trickier shots. But we are talking baseline here. The whole thing with stickiness is probably one of the more notable things about Peggle balls is they can roll across a whole bunch of bars to give you high scores. You can't do that in Roundguard. It's all bounce all the time. But those seem like minor nitpicks in the grand scheme of things. Because Roundguard isn't going for the one-to-one Peggle experience. Hence the merging of roguelike.
As you can tell by the fact that you get to choose a class at the start of the game.
Yeah, and they're the three initial classes are they are your typical warrior, rogue, mage. And, they've got the accoutrements to that. That is to say, the warrior's your fucking tank, meat shield. Your rogue is your dexterity character. Stealing isn't really a thing. I don't remember if that's one of her, additional attacks, but her base attack is a double jump. And the wizard starts out with lightning. But
whereas the barbarians or fighters thing is that they can click to do extra damage to an enemy when they hit one.
You can it's the he spins.
I'm just wondering because I see this killer joke being the thing, or is that a special thing, and his regular attack is something else?
That is one of his special attacks. Well,
yeah, Petty hasn't unlocked anything other than the basics.
Right.
There's one.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just a matter of attacks in terms of speciality. So the goal of each board is to eliminate all of the opponent pegs, for lack of a better term, which take the form of your typical fantasy monsters. Orcs, goblins, gargoyles, spiders, some more round than others. Up to boss encounters. Like the first boss is a mad scientist, and the second boss that they were literally so very proud of, it's on the Steam page, is the Beholder. And your job is to kill them by hitting them. But here's the thing about hitting them. When you hit a peg, it's not just the peg that gets damaged. You will take damage. And that is where the factor of being a wizard versus being a knight comes into play. The knight will take less damage.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, as far as the druid goes, somewhere in the middle in terms of stats, but the big thing about her is she can turn normal pegs into flowers, and she can teleport through them. So, you can use that for all sorts of trick shots.
Interesting.
Yes. Definitely the most interesting character in terms of movement dynamics. But you kind of expect that since she's, the first update character. Wouldn't say DLC.
Update or even...
She's
I'd still call it kind of... It's not like separate paid DLC. It's just an update, yeah.
Yeah, because she's not DLC. She's in the game now. If you buy the game, she's part of the game.
Right.
Yeah. Even if you had it it's a base upgrade.
Mm-hmm. But non-base characters, let's say, are still usually a little bit more complicated than the basic ones.
Right. Anyway, getting back to the outline of the pegs, the yellow ones, they are money pegs. Your money is your score. You see the red and blue pegs. Those are restorative pegs that will give you health or mana. Red is health, blue is mana, as is custom. Mm-hmm. Also in the game, there are status effects, as you'd expect. Shit like poison, which works like poison does.
Does it tick on time or on bounces or
turns?
Okay.
Like, if you get a hit with a status affliction, positive or negative, because you can have positive, like you can do double damage, for example, or like I think that's enraged, or you got the opposite, vulnerable, where you take double damage for. It's usually 3 turns. Mm-hmm. The thing is, the amount can change the more it stacks. You got to be careful with like the poison. Like if you get hit with enough poison, you can be taking like 50, 75 points damage per turn. This has happened to me. And yeah, that killed. Further.
What's the difference between falling on the spikes at the end versus bouncing off on the cushion?
Damage. I'm like, I gotta say that was a mistake. Like, I guess it's that feeding into the difficulty of a roguelike deal, where, yeah, if you fall on the spikes, you take damage. Or later on, if you fall into the water, you take damage. Point is, if you fall on the dangerous bits, you take damage. You fall on the cushion, you do not take damage. and you can see when you finish a level, you get the Peggle bonus area. Only in this, not just points, but you get arms or armaments. In once again, in keeping with the whole dungeon crawler theme, you get more powerful weapons, better armor. Not just in terms of how much it can protect or attack, but also status elements to inflict, or like specific damages, or if I'm trying to, or if that's the trinkets. No. You could get items that where ogres will take damage first round kind of things. And there are like up to 200 pieces of these things you can equip. You also, as you go through the dungeon, you will periodically hit the gold counter, where you, depending on the amount of gold, you will be able to spend for permanent upgrades, which means this is a rogue light. Yeah, and not just like the permanent upgrades are the things you unlock for the wheel. It's weird, and the things you get on the wheel can be on your next run. So there's a bit of layering going on there.
Okay.
Yeah, and the dungeon paths will lead you to specific kinds of rooms. There's a few kind of monster rooms, like Petty here is playing in the skeleton room, where you've got to fight a whole bunch of skeletons. And like one of the quirks of that is the skulls they leave behind can get haunted. And they will get, if you hit one of those, they will give you a status affliction called Mana Burn. And a Mana Burn will drain your mana for 3 turns. And you've got, sometimes they are accompanied by those fucking gelatinous cubes. That is a poison gelatinous cube, if I remember it. They're not all bad. Some of them are the cleansing gelatinous cubes, which dispel the bad and the good status afflictions.
Are there any that don't do anything and just kind of like slow you down a little?
They don't just slow you down, they remove all your momentum. So you see you drop like a stone. Yeah. They're kind of annoying. Like, anyway, other monster rooms are like the orc rooms, the spider rooms, and then there are the treasure rooms, which are stacked with treasure, but like the main treasure will depend on what's symbolized, like whether you get a sword, armor, that kind of thing. It's all really elaborate. Compounding this is eventually you will be able to unlock runes. Those are modifiers. Like the first rune I unlocked was basically easy mode, which enabled you to have more hit points. And the rune I unlocked for my first successful dungeon run was double or nothing. That is to say, they really ramp up the glass cannon. You do double damage, but you take double damage. And yeah, all in all, it's a solid game. Really good use of the Peggle principles outside of the things I outlined at the beginning. And also has made it its own voice. The thing is, I don't think it has the staying power that the game thinks it has. Because this game really does intend for you to be playing for a long time. It doesn't take too long to get through a dungeon, either by kill or, conquering. Like, it took about 2 hours for me to get through the 3 acts of the dungeon. That being said, after I was done, I was done, quite frankly, because quite frankly, you see pretty much all there is to see in a few hours. But you're expected to, like go through with all the characters, um, add or subtract the rooms, that kind of thing. There's a lot added here to keep the game going, but I just don't think the core gameplay is sustainable enough for that kind of player length. Which makes sense because if you remember Peggle was a fairly short game. It's also kind of relying on the random generation to get through things. Every level's unique, but it's still not adding that much in terms of flavoring. That being said, it's a good game. Not amazing. I don't like it as much as Peggle, but it's still a solid 7 out of 10 affair, I'd say. Maybe more worthwhile getting it on, the Nintendo Switch, where you can do the portable gameplay. But on the other hand, you're going to be up against Joy-Cons, control sticks, and this is definitely a game where having a mouse, you'll get the better accuracy. In terms of price, it's $20. That's maybe asking a bit much for a game that's aping Peggle so much. If you recall, Peggle was only $10 when it was new. I think it's still like $10. I'm like, I could maybe go up to 15 considering the additions and changes, but 20's a bit, I think, asking too much for a game of this type. That being said, when it is on a sale, be sure to pick it up because it's a solid experience otherwise. And yeah, I think that'll about do it for not just this review, but this review session. So coming up on the week ahead, let's see. On Wednesday, July 21st, we'll be welcoming back Rebecca Becky Heineman of Old School Publishing. Basically, we're doing a redo of her last interview since, we ran into the technical problems because of kitties.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the interview takes a similar shape to the last one, we're basically doing a restart on that one. Since we felt it was owed. No Friday show this week. That got shifted down a month since the developer had to go to a wedding. And also like working on the console port of the game. And we are also most likely having an episode of Last News Desk on the Left. Max seems to have exited chaos mode.
For now.
Yeah. Certainly enough where,
we did start MS Saga a half hour late today because of various medical issues, but
my point is, he doesn't have to do the Uber to make sure he isn't homeless. At least I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't seen any, oh, please commission me messages lately, so.
Mm-hmm.
Please buy my kidney.
He hasn't gotten that bad yet. But
I like how you need to put the yet there.
I'm like, still, with Mac, I like, it was pretty close to the vest there. Anyway, so that's coming up this week. And until Wednesday, I shall wish you good gaming.